Cartier, Lamborghini. Influencer marketing? Is influencer marketing actually expensive now?
It is the Influencer Marketing Show. I am Joel.
I'm Brad.
Hello from Detroit. It's good to see you. What are we talking about today? Is influencer marketing expensive? One of the things that we've experienced of late is sticker shock. You want me to spend how much to test this? What the hell is the matter with you people? Our recommendation is $100K to test. If you are going to come into the influencer space, if you're going to come in cold, if you spend less than $100K, and obviously this isn't, scientific, somewhere significant in there. If you spend less than that, you're going to run the risk of not actually learning anything. You're going to run the risk of spending all that money and not getting any clear signal, any clear noise. And we actually are being able to separate signal from noise. We have two different interesting case studies that we want to drive home the point, because this is core to us. We spent a lot of time thinking about it. We've tested a whole bunch of different dollar amounts with clients. We find that until a client actually spends $100K, they can't make any real decisions. So why do we say that? Well, there are two case studies. Are we saying the brands? Do we know?
Let's do it.
Okay. So we have zero permission to talk about this, but I think we're probably okay. Really, really cool software product. Monday.com. Monday.com. Super cool product, super smart people. And Monday got an interesting curse of success when they first came into the influencer space. They did something that was wildly successful right out of the gate. And so they partnered with this one particular creator. The creator, did, let's do a walkthrough of our studio and like our workflow and all of that. Every stage of this brilliantly, focused on Monday's workflow software and all that.
Yeah, he was already using the software.
He actually already was
perfect,
using it.
yeah.
So it checked a whole bunch of boxes. It was authentic. It was real. This is what we do. It's helpful. It was a real endorsement. Everything that we're going for, right? Monday's like, this is amazing. And then they spent like the next 3 years trying to recreate that one integration.
Yeah, that's a false positive.
Which was and it's like, and like our advice at the time was like, this is awesome. We will take that wherever we can possibly get it. That is probably not what you can expect at scale. And it is going to be very, very difficult to ramp that up if those are what your standards are. So anyways, by looking at this one little integration, they're like, we need to do that. Influencer marketing works amazingly for us. We need to scale. And they haven't been able to, because that's their standard. And I think it's kind of locked them into a very specific kind. So
now everything seems expensive to them.
So now everything seems ludicrously expensive, and it can't be that. And you have people that are only tangentially involved, and this is you get into organizational politics, where it's like, hey, you get 5 minutes of my time. I want more money to go do this. Can we recreate that? Probably, yeah. If you can recreate that, I'll give you all the budget you want, right? We know how that conversation goes, and it's wildly unrealistic. So
you can't feel like you did on your honeymoon throughout the entire marriage?
You fight? All right. So, okay, that's one. That's the downside. Do we have something else?
Yeah. I think there's another really good example. Again, first, let me just go on a quick tangent and say, I feel like I did when I was in college the first night I drank on a Thursday. And I was like, I am drinking and it's not the weekend. So the fact that we're getting into this and sharing behind the curtain with respect to some brand names takes me back to my time in college. All right, anyways. So the other one, which is
every Thursday from then on.
That's right. And then I felt better doing it on Wednesday and then Tuesday, and somehow I'm here. Now I'm here behind a microphone, one of these two beards in front of you. Well, we appreciate you bearing with us as I took that big tangent. But let's talk Simply Safe. So here is a brand that they actually had something very similar happen, where they reached out to a few creators, like 3 or 4. And they had one of the creators do really, really well.
Yeah.
But instead of saying, this is the standard, they said, okay, we have a little bit of signal. Let's now do what we would consider to be the standard test, somewhere in the neighborhood of 100K.
Yep.
And then they started to say, okay, that one did really, really well, which is great. Let's learn from that. Try to do things more similar to it, but recognize we're probably never going to, catch lightning in a bottle twice. I don't even know if that's the expression. You know what I mean?
Absolutely makes sense.
So then we've now got a starting point for a program, and not to be self-aggrandizing here, but we've been working with them for years now, and it's a significant program.
Well. It's worked really, really well. It's worked well for them. All that. Yeah. So okay, what are the differences, right? Both had early success. What was in terms of answering this question is influencer expensive? Obviously, expensive is subjective. Why did one go one direction and not be able to scale, another went another direction and was able to scale? How did they answer that question? What's the difference?
I think the difference is how do you interpret the data, right? Because when you have one data point, I call it a one rat study, it's tough to draw too many conclusions from that. And so one of the brands said, hey, let's expand this a little bit to get a appropriate FDA approved lab study and rolled out with a number of creators. They did that, established a baseline from there, and kept rolling. So I think a big part of it is, look, don't get too high in this example based on one small win early on. But also, it works in the opposite direction too, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can easily spend $50K, it not work, and that not mean that influencer, it doesn't work for you. And we've seen that with other brands as well. They came in, they tested, it was garbage. And to their credit, they kept trying, like, well, we think there's something here and we're going to try and figure it out. And they have. And now it's a huge, huge line item on a very substantial marketing budget because they figured out a formula that works. Look, and this would be our recommendation. Is influencer expensive? Probably, and certainly more so than it is for for those of us who've been in the space for a while, we got a whole lot of dollars coming in. There's a supply and demand mismatch. Creators themselves, in terms of how they price stuff out, it is inelastic. If a creator gets $50K for an integration and they did it 3 years ago, we're at the peak of the game, and then they've been on the long, slow decline because YouTube's just preferencing them less and less and less. Right. They still like, well, I got this once, I should get it. And like, it's almost too much of a, I don't want to be an armchair psychologist here, but it's like there's a pretty big ego hit for them to go like, well, I used to get $50K and now I'll be happy to get 20. Most creators don't do that.
Well, think of it like your salary. If you're watching this, it's really tough if you got a raise from 60K to 70K to then have to go back to making 60 or 65K. It's just, even if that's fair, if you're in a recession, it just doesn't feel right. It's not very palatable. So it's really tough for creators to go backwards. So,
right. So anyways, without going down too many rabbit trails, yes, influencer marketing is expensive, but if you are a product or a service that could legitimately benefit from recommendation, and if it is worthwhile for a creator, if they're legitimately excited about endorsing you, then there's something there. We don't know what it is. It might take a little bit to figure it out. Right. There could be a formula that is going to work. Maybe it's going to look very, very different from the way that the rest of the influencer economy is operating. That's fine. There's something there. And it is likely worthwhile. And we know that it's worthwhile. We know that it's worthwhile because all sorts of other marketing channels are becoming less worthwhile. Right. Like, if you're in that situation, you do need to do this, but just, like when you first start testing this, it's going to be expensive. And here's what else I'm willing to bet. When we talk to brands, they're like, well, this is what we can do on paid social. This is what we can do on paid search. And I want to say, like, is that the whole number? Does that include all the test budget as you were figuring it out and all the different stuff that you were testing? Of course not. It's like, oh no, right now, last week, I did great. How are you doing in school, son? Last week I got an A. That's great. That's great. What happened to the 5 weeks before? Anyways, you get the point. So, yes, kind of it's expensive. Depends on how you're looking at it. But literally, really, 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 truly, and honestly believe that it's worth it. Do you want to say anything else?
Yeah, really quickly. I think so much of it comes down to measurement and attribution. And we could nerd out about that. We could talk for hours. So we're not going to talk about that in this episode. But a lot of times, brands that think influencer marketing is too expensive, it's actually that they're not measuring its effectiveness appropriately. We've said it once, we'll say it a million times. Influencer is a full funnel program, awareness, consideration, conversion. You need to really understand how to measure it. I think that's one of the parts that's really important. And then the other last thing I would quickly plug This influencer is coming up with the storyboard and the creative. It's developing the content. It's producing it. It's editing it. And they already, like the influencer, the creator, they already have a huge audience. So this whole idea of like production and distribution sort of goes out the window. Right. And so often when people are looking at cost of influencer, they're looking at compared to other distribution costs, and they're not factoring in all the production pieces that are associated with it that creator is taking on themselves. So when you're a brand and working with an influencer, you're getting the strategy, the creative, the production, the editing, and the audience all in one. And yeah, that's going to be more expensive than if you're paying, $1 million to someone to create a series of TV ads, and you're only comparing it to the cost to be able to buy spots on linear or cable TV. So there is a distinction that I think can get a little bit muddied, but yeah, influencer isn't cheap, but it can be very effective when you do it right and you understand what you're measuring. To me, that's the key takeaway with this. Anything else you'd add?
No, I think that's good. We're going to stop it there. Again, this is the Influencer Marketing Show. I'm Joel.
I'm still Brad.
It's good to see you. Follow us on social, and we'll be back soon. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye from Detroit.
Goodbye from Detroit.